Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of I Was Raised in a Religious Cult Stories from the Other Side. My name is Scar, and I am joined by my partner. Their online name is Lost in Japan. I call them Japan. You can say hello if you're ready.
I'm ready, and I am saying hello. There you go.
That works.
Oh,
Anyway,
I'm bad at intros.
I am too, if it makes you feel better. So yeah, we're back. I wanted to just preface this episode by saying that I am doing my best getting these episodes out. I wish that I could be more consistent on getting them out every Sunday, but I'm just struggling to do that, so I don't want to hold myself to that because it stresses me out. I will do my best to make that what I continue to do. No matter what, the episodes will come out on Sunday, but I'm struggling and I wanted to make it clear so that I didn't make promises that I couldn't keep. Before we do get into this episode, there are some trigger warnings for child sexual abuse as well as suicide. If those are things that you are sensitive to, I just wanted you to be aware. I don't go super heavily into those topics. They are mentioned, however, and I wanted to just make sure I mentioned it just in case it could be something that is potentially triggering to another person. I never want to do that. I mean, these episodes are generally heavy topics, so keep that in mind as well. Anyway, the last episode we left off, we were talking about my friend Angel and his family. We talked about them getting baptized and how my family had kind of gotten close to their family, and I prepared this episode, but I'm going to do my best talking about these things. This is the least talked about time of my life. So these are things that are really hard for me to talk about. And as much as I've shared with Japan, my partner, I'm sure there are things that I talk about here that even he hasn't heard about. And I tell him everything. So this is really difficult for me. And just keep that in mind if I'm a hot mess. Anyway.
Okay.
Like I said, we left off talking about Angel and his family. I think Angel for me was my first love in life. So he was an important person in my life at this time. And like I said, our families were getting close. I feel like there was always still a divide though. My mom I've talked about how she kind of made me feel less than, and I think that was a view that she had of us as well because she grew up very poor. She was someone that never had clean clothes or a clean home growing up. My nose is making weird noise. I don't know if it's coming through, but I can hear it in my own headset, so I'm sorry if it's coming
I don't think I heard
through.
it even. I think you're good.
Okay, I don't know. My mic's here and it picks up everything, so hopefully not. If so, I'm sorry. But yeah, my mom always sort of made me feel very gross or less than other people, and they were extremely clean. So I remember even like one time their family came over and my mom freaked out. I think it was an unexpected visit, which at least in the South, that was a big thing where people would just show up to your house and like be like, oh, hey, what's up? And I also grew up in that weird in-between time where cell phones were first becoming a thing and people didn't always like, if you're out and about and you're near someone's house that you know of, you'll just stop by instead of calling or texting. So, God, I'm aging myself. I just had a birthday. I'm 29 now, so I'm aging myself very well, or like showing my age very well. Yeah, so they came over. I remember, one of the times I specifically remember, and just my mom's freaking out. She's acting like we're weird or dirty, and it's a complex I've had my whole life, which I'm sure you can attest to, honey.
Yeah, definitely.
I have literally, somebody broke into my house while I was home alone, and my house wasn't clean enough, so I didn't call the police. That's how my mom did a number on me.
Yeah, pretty sure that you can tell that from the whole series.
Oh no, really? I'm so well adjusted and totally doesn't seem clear in the series. Psh.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, you feel like that too.
No, but if we're just gonna lie to ourselves,
we're
that's
gonna
fine.
we're gonna keep that one. um so it was around this time I was really feeling like acting more mature. Um I liked this guy. He was a little older than me, not like a crazy amount, I think 2 or 3 years. And I really liked him, and so I was trying to be more mature around this time. And I remember I heard Angel call his father dad, and I still called my dad like daddy, like a lot of kids do whenever they're young. And it made me feel childish. So I started calling my dad dad, and my brother also ended up starting to call him that too, because I think that like it probably made him feel self-conscious that I started doing that. And I remember my dad got like super weird and pissy about it. Like it really bothered him. Like he kept making these comments like, "Oh, I see how it is now." And I'm just like, okay. Like it's so funny because my dad was never really there for me. And it was like, why are you getting bent over this of all things?
Yeah,
I just thought it was a weird thing, you know,
it is.
to get mad about. And it kind of snowballed because around this time I wanted to get into wearing makeup. I wanted it was like, oh, I want to be attractive, or like I want, whatever. And I remember my dad was at work and I went to my mom and I'm like, "Mom, I want to wear makeup. Can I start wearing makeup?" And she's like, "Of course." So she kind of like helped me choose some makeup out. Like she got me mascara, some eyeshadow. It was actually a really nice thing that my mom did for me. And I remember we were on our way to the meeting when I decided to wear makeup for the first time in front of my dad, because usually I would wear it and like clean it off before my dad got home from work. And so I'd been kind of wearing makeup for a little bit, and I finally was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna wear it when we go to the meeting." And my dad always drove a lot, not always, but he drove a lot, and I would sit behind my dad in the behind him. Why am I having trouble saying this? Yes, I sat behind my dad, Jesus Christ. And being in the driver's seat, he looked up and saw me in the rearview mirror, and we made eye contact. And he's like, "Are you wearing makeup?" And I could tell by the tone, I'm like, uh-oh. Like my stomach dropped. I was like, oh no. I almost cussed. I'm trying so hard not to cuss in this series. So I had a oh crap moment. And he just like absolutely exploded. He got really nasty and he's like, "I don't know why you think in my house you're gonna wear makeup and not ask me." And I'm like, "Well, Mom said I could." And my mom's quiet at the moment because my dad's in one of his little rages. And he's like, "You need to wipe it off." And I'm just like, "I can't wipe it off. Mom said it was fine." And I wasn't even wearing that much makeup. It was literally just like mascara and like a little bit of eyeshadow. It really wasn't excessive. It wasn't a lot. And he's like freaking out. My mom's like, "Look, I told them that they could do it. Don't get mad at them. Just let them wear it for tonight and then we can talk about it more." Like she talked him down. But by this point, my feelings were hurt. And funnily enough, I ended up just crying it all off in the back seat. And I kind of just, once my dad stopped exploding at me, because when my dad gets mad, his face gets all red. My dad has a very red face, but it's like, it gets super red, like lobster red. And he was at that point and he was like super pissed. And I just always thought my dad looked ridiculous in his suits because he didn't look like he fit in a suit. And it like the contrast of his red face against his white shirt was really prominent that night. And I just kind of did my silent cry in the back and pretty much cried it all off anyway, so I guess he won on that one. I feel like this is a weird switch, but in talking about how we drove to the Kingdom Hall, for the meeting, it kind of reminded me of how, I guess, trauma impacts me, or how the trauma from being in a cult kind of still impacts me. I have a problem. I don't know if it's a problem. It's a memory issue where I can't fully picture places that I've been like a million times. Like even my childhood home, I can't fully picture it. And I can't fully picture the Kingdom Hall that we went to for years. And the only time I can really fully picture it is like in my dreams. I have a lot of bad dreams surrounding, of course, my growing up, and that I see it there like a lot. It's always kind of warped in some way. There's always like this bad gut feeling in my dreams, like something bad is gonna happen, kind of like that feeling you get when you're a kid. And like I feel like everybody knows this feeling. You know how like, I don't know, maybe you too, Japan, like, you know how like when you're a kid and you're in bed and you are fully convinced that there is something in the closet or just outside your window or under your bed, you know, that just dread feeling?
Yeah.
That's what I get in my dreams. And it's just terror. And I have these really bad dreams about like being an adult and having to go to the Kingdom Hall. And in the dreams, I know I need to get away, but for some reason I'm incapable of it. And I think maybe it's because, I can't save younger me from what happened. So I think maybe that's why I get trapped there. I wish I could, but I can't. And that's really tough. So that's kind of how a weird little snippet, I guess, into how trauma is in my brain. But anyway, kind of back to what I was talking about is kind of how I was trying to be more mature. And around this time, I think I was trying to be like a normal teenage girl. And I never felt like one. It always felt like I was acting, and I just wanted so badly to be normal, like a normal teenage girl. And I've talked about my gender identity and how that kind of ties into it, and I'll talk about it more too, but I think I might have mentioned this in my last episode, how during the meetings, Angel and I would like look at each other during the meetings, and we would always like try to like look at each other and smile. And to me, in my head, I'm like, oh my god, like I was a little dork. I'm like, this is like crazy. I'm like, I don't know. I was just all in my head all about it. I was a dork. I remember he was super into drawing, and I remember one time when we went out in service together, he had left his orange pen and his drawing in our car. And I remember his favorite color was orange, and my dad was just super mean about it. He started making fun of him. He's like, this is a girly color. You just basically just ragging on him for liking the color orange, like a teenage boy making fun of him for his favorite color. It's just so dumb. And my dad is just, he's a man's man. You know that.
Yeah.
This is, it was just, I don't know. I wasn't intending to share this yet, but back in 2020, Angel committed suicide. So it's kind of hard to talk about him, and recall those memories, there were like a lot of things that I left unsaid that I always kind of regretted not saying. There were a lot of things that happened between our families, and it just kind of sucks. And everything that happened in that cult made it just so hard for us to be normal, well-adjusted adults. And when I heard about it, it just it hit really hard, because, you know, I've dealt with those feelings too. And it just, I know, you know, that had something to do with it. I'm obviously not over it. It really impacted me. It was just such a big portion of my life and childhood, and, you know, a person that was there for a big part of it. And it's just really sad to hear about. And he had a daughter, and I'll talk more about that time and more of it later, but it's hard. So talking about this stuff is harder because of it, I guess. It's already hard, but it doesn't help. And I just wanted to say that, because yeah. But
Makes sense.
yeah, I'm gonna do the best I can. But anyway, around this time, this is when we started going to what is known as quick builds. I don't know if Jehovah's Witnesses still do these, but back in the day, basically, we would have 2 weeks to build a kingdom hall from the ground up. The only thing that was done in advance was laying the foundation, which my family also did. And honestly, it was so much fun. I actually loved it. It was like going on vacation. You know, we were super poor. So this was like a vacation. We would go to, you know, areas around in our camper to do the quick build. And I remember we would get to stay at like these really cool campsites, and we'd get to bring my brother and I would like bring our bikes and go biking, and it was really cool to have this human interaction outside of our kingdom hall. And I got to meet, you know, some kids around my age, which was really nice. I ended up working in the cook tent. I think we started out in paint, but at some point, which I'll get into why later, I ended up in the cook tent, and I remember everyone in it was mostly older than me, and I loved doing it. They would all kind of look out for me, kind of like parent me, and it felt really nice. And it was hard work, and we'd be tired by the end of the day, but I remember just feeling valued, and I got to be independent, and I got to spend most of my time away from my family, so being on my own, and it was just nice. And this sounds probably weird, but it was easier to be authentically me when I wasn't around my family, which is sad. And I still feel that way. I mean, I've blossomed so much as a human since cutting contact with my family. So I get why I felt that way then. I remember one of the first quick builds we went to, I ended up meeting a girl who was close to my age. We're going to call her Lindsay, and we started in paint together, and she was related to a couple in our Kingdom Hall that had gotten us into that, like, hello brain section. That's not the word, but basically working in that tent. I don't know what's happening to my brain right now. This word is slipping my mind, but I hope that you guys get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Anyway, she became like my new best friend. And, you know, I would talk to her. We would talk about who we liked. I told her about Angel. She ended up meeting Angel. She actually kind of tried to wingman for me, but, like, in a weird way. So she had heard about some ballroom dancing classes, and she's like, oh my god, we should go with a couple other kids. The shady part of this story, she met Angel through me. They had done two classes before she invited me, even though she invited Angel. Thought it was kind of weird. Kind of always has bothered me, and I never understood why. But I don't know. She was like, yeah, that way you can dance with Angel, and you guys can have a chance to interact away from parents. And I remember it sounded fun, but I ended up saying no. I didn't want my family to make fun of me. I didn't think we could afford it. I felt kind of awkward about it socially, and I knew if I did it, my dad would be weird towards me for doing it and for dancing with boys. Even though it was up my alley, I ended up deciding not to do it. I regretted it until one night my parents got a call from Angel's parents, and he had been going to the classes, and I, for the life of me, cannot quite remember what happened, but basically there was some sort of scandal. Some of the kids, like the Jehovah's Witness kids, got caught kissing. There was like beer involved, like a whole bunch of stuff happened, and his parents end up calling mine, and they're like, was I involved somehow? And I'm just like, I didn't even go to the dang classes. What do you mean? And I think they were trying to ask what kind of person Lindsay was. And I'm just like, I didn't do anything wrong. But I still got dragged into it, even though I did nothing wrong. And let me tell you, I was so mad at Angel because he was, for some reason, they decided to bring me into it. I did not go. I had nothing to do with it. And he's like, yeah, referring to me, oh, they made googly eyes at me during when we used to study the Bible. And I'm like, excuse you? Because like we would like look at each other and smile all the time. So I'm like, what do you mean I was making googly eyes at you? I did not look at that boy for like weeks. I was like anytime he tried to catch my eye, I would turn and give him the stink eye. And he kept trying to be like, oh, I'm sorry and stuff. I would refuse to acknowledge him. I'm like, no. How dare you? How dare? I was so mad at him over this. And my feelings were hurt, because I'm like, we like each other, so why are you doing this? Why are you acting like this? What's the tea here, and anyway, yeah, I was frustrated, but that blew over, and my friend Lindsay, she ended up inviting me to go on this camping trip with her family and another friend of hers, and this friend was a boy that she had grown up with and had been close to her whole life. Their families had been always close. And because a boy was going to be going on the camping trip, I almost didn't get to go, which her mom tried to explain to like my dad and mom, like, hey, we're going to keep them separated. He's not going to be in the same area sleeping with them. Like, it's all good. And this is so weird. Whatever year Nacho Libre came out is when I went on this camping trip. And I remember that because he was like, oh, have you guys seen Nacho Libre? And I was like, no, I don't even know what that is. But that is the movie that just came out. I really wish I knew what year that was, but that's the year. That's when I went on that camping trip that summer. So we stayed the first night. I had gotten to their house that evening. We stayed the night at her house, and I remember thinking she was super cool. Like, she had done all these art projects. I think she was like maybe a year or two older than me. And I think this is a very common theme in my life where I think that maybe I had crushes on people and didn't realize it because I didn't know I was queer. yet, but I remember thinking she was like so cool. And so the first night we stayed at her house, I remember we went for like a walk through the neighborhood. We laid on her trampoline, all of us talking. It was really fun, and I liked it, and I felt like I belonged, kind of, even though, they had been friends for however, years. And then I ended up getting to hang out with just her, later that night when we were in a room getting ready for bed. We stayed up all night pretty much talking. And then the next day we all piled up in her dad's paint van and pulled the camper. They had brought a camper, and we spent the whole day. We went to this really cool campsite. Very, very cool. It was on the lake, and there were bluffs that you could jump off into the water. It was honestly so much fun. We spent the whole day swimming, hanging out. It was just exciting, I guess. It made me feel like a normal kid. And I remember that night, me and my friend Lindsay were supposed to stay in the tent together, but she had been having these heart problems, and they had kind of started acting up. We almost had to cut the camping trip short, but they ended up, what ended up happening is me, her mom, and her stayed in the camper, and then her dad and her friend stayed in the tent together. I'm just gonna not share that part of the story. It's the one I shared with you the other day.
That's fine. I don't think it's needed.
It's not needed. It's just embarrassing. Yeah, it's just a funny poop story, and I'm just not gonna share that because I don't need to out myself like that. Anyway, it was really fun. And then the next day we left a little earlier. We were gonna stay until later in the afternoon, but we left earlier because she was still having her heart problem, and they were just worried about it. So the next day we were headed home, and I remember the drive was like maybe an hour or two, and I had saved up my money and bought a Nintendo DS. I'd been waiting I remember when it got announced, and I waited forever, and then I got it, and I had saved up all my money and gotten this thing. And on the Nintendo DS was a thing called PictoChat, I believe, and basically we all kept writing back and forth to each other on it in the back seat, because obviously kids don't want to share certain things with their parents in the car. Hello. But it actually got kind of crappy because they started just handing it back and forth and talking, and I'm like, oh, what are you guys talking about? They're like, oh, just another friend. And I was like, okay. They, for like over an hour, they took my DS from me and talked to each other. I'm pretty sure they were talking crap about me. Which I remember I was like nervous and kind of weird the day before a little bit, and I don't know if it's an autism thing, but I always try, in my head, I would kind of play a character or something around certain people. I was still me, but like playing somewhat of a character that I thought they would like better or something. So that's a little bit on me, but taking my DS and then talking crap about me was not nice.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, it was awkward. They wouldn't let me see it, and it made me feel super neglected. I ended up shutting down for the rest of the ride home, and it was just super awkward. I remember we just all stopped talking in the back seat, and I think her dad may have seen that they were doing that, but I don't think he knew really what to do. I remember he kind of gave me like a look, but like didn't know what to do. And I was so upset that I ended up leaving my pillow, I think, in their car, and I just hopped in my mom's and we took off. And I remember we got home and I just went in my room and cried and fell asleep for the rest of the night and just said that I was tired. And I do remember I hung out with her one more time. It was just kind of like something that was thrown on to me, and I told my mom I wasn't sure I wanted to go because it was with her. A couple, like my parents had made friends with this couple whose sister had come to town to visit from Illinois, and they were related to Lindsay. They were cousins, I think, and she was close to our age, so I went over to their house and we all hung out, and I was very much so left out and just did not feel happy. I kind of always sort of struggled with friendships and relationships. You know, I'm sure some of that was definitely me, and it was also, you know, other people. Like, I understand if I was being a weird kid, but I don't know, we were all pretty stunted and weird in different ways, you know, growing up in a cult's gonna do that, but it was always a tough thing for me. It was a little rough. And then I am not transitioning this well. Segues are not my thing, so we're just gonna skip to the next stories.
It's okay. That's fine. You don't have to have anything too crazy.
So around, I'd say when I was around 14, new family moved into our Kingdom Hall. They were family of some people that were already in our Kingdom Hall. The woman that moved in was a sister and daughter to this other family group. It was the mom, brother, and sister that lived together. They were very weird. Just very weird people. I remember we thought that the brother and sister were married when we first moved to this Kingdom Hall. That is the type of relationship that it seemed like they had, until they were like, no, you're crazy, we're brother and sister. We're like, oh. It was weird. Very weird. And they were such a weird family. I remember the sister would she wanted to be she's 40, and she was like, oh my gosh, we should be friends. She's like, I can be young and hip, but then she would just say the most out of pocket things to me. You know, I was still a teenager, I was still growing, and mind you, I had horrible body issues, including an eating disorder from my mom. And she looked at me one day, she's like, you know, when you grow out of your clothes, I can always take them and wear them. I'm just so small. I was like, oh, thanks. Thank you. What? She couldn't have worn my clothes, but it was just so crazy. And I remember one day, I don't remember what was said or done, but she drove me crazy. And we were out in service together, and I remember, I don't remember what was said or done, but she's like, she does this big huff, she crosses her arms, and she's like, well, I don't want to be your friend anymore. Like a 3-year-old or something, kind of threw a little tantrum, and I remember being like, what is happening right now? 40 years old acting like that, and I remember being like, huh? What? I'll probably talk more about them later. But anyway, so you can kind of get an idea of how weird and odd they were. And then her sister moved in, and her sister had 7 kids, and she was a single mom. All of the kids were weird as hell too. I'm gonna be so honest. They were just, it's the same thing. They grew up in this cult. They had always been homeschooled. They were just weird. You can't not be weird when you have no outside perspective or influence. And I remember I liked the kids. They were sweet. A lot of them were young, and I would do what I could to just, you know, I liked them, you know. I was always good with kids. I never wanted kids, but I was good with them. And the oldest kid, we're going to call him Theo, was, I believe, 16, 17, around this time. I think I was around 14. Once again, just super odd. for me to say someone was odd is funny because I was very odd too and very weird, and I was raised in a cult too, so I'm still very weird. More adjusted than I used to be, but definitely still a weird person. And they were just out there. And I remember, you know, everybody at the Kingdom Hall would be like, oh, we gotta like encourage them and make them feel welcome and loved and feel like they belong here. And I got put in a service car with Theo, and I remember we were in the car, and I was like, you know, I want to make him feel, you know, as welcome as possible. Like, I thought he was weird, but I'm like, you know, maybe he's just nervous or whatever. I think he also got like a bad rap because he was diagnosed with BPD, and at the time, you know, having a disorder like that was very like, oh, they're super weird, something's wrong with them. So I imagine that was tough for him to feel like, you know, and to come into this. And but anyway, I was in the car with him one day. We were out in service, and I remember I was talking to him, and then there was this weird moment where he was like, oh yeah, we were talking about like scars on our body or something, and like things that had happened or why we had them, and he like lifted his pant leg up and showed me a scar on his shin and was like, oh yeah, I got this for whatever. And I want to make it very clear that I am very oblivious to when people like me or are flirting with me. I'm super oblivious to it. So for me to recognize the way he looked at me, I was like, uh-oh. Like, my stomach dropped, and I'm like, wait a minute. Something happened there. I clocked it. Very oblivious to this, so it had to be super obvious. And I was like, nah, I'm probably just making it up in my head. So I think that weekend, him and Angel ended up having a sleepover. Basically, his parents were like, hey, you should make him feel welcome. Let's have him over for a sleepover. So they had a sleepover. And then the Monday after that sleepover, my mom gets a call at home. And she's like, oh, hey, Theo. Like, Theo called. And he's like, hey, I really need to talk to, you know, my dad. And my mom's like, what's up? He's like, it's very important, and I need to talk to, you know, their dad, talking about me and my dad. Mom was like, why don't you talk to me first? And he like explains to my mom that he intends to ask my dad for my hand in marriage. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, what? My mom's like, you really don't want to talk to their dad? He's like, no, I really do. My mom's like, no, I'm telling you, man, you do not want to talk to their dad. He learned that pretty quickly. Let's just say my dad put the fear of God into this child. This
Sounds
boy didn't so much as breathe in my direction. I have never repelled someone so hard from me. It was like I was treated like a poisonous snake that would kill him, because my father was like, don't you dare, you know, like, basically, don't look at me, speak to me, act like I exist, don't ever even talk about me. If the thought of my child crosses your brain, let's just say it better not happen. My dad pretty much threatened to kill him. I don't know how you dealt with my dad, Japan.
I'm just that good.
Yeah, well, yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. We'll get into that. When it comes to the time.
When I asked for your hand, I didn't have that many issues.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that when it comes to that. And what made it worse, I guess what kind of prodded him to do this was the sleepover. at the sleepover, Angel and Theo had talked about me, and Angel talked to Theo about how he liked me, which I kind of like was seriously like, he does like me, but oh my god, my dad's gonna kill this child. But yeah, we weren't even never allowed to be near each other. Like, I cannot express to you how much this kid did not talk to me. And I get kind of why he thought that was an acceptable thing to do, because his mom ended up going on one date with one of the people in our Kingdom Hall, and they got married. One date. This guy, he was weird too. Everybody was weird. He was like 40 something. He lived with his parents, which I don't think there's anything wrong with living with your parents, but what made it weird is he would still get grounded by them at his big grown age. Like, he got like really close to my brother because they liked similar things, or I forgot what their big thing that they really, I don't know, nerdy things. I mean, I say that like I wasn't a big nerd, but anyway, whatever brand of nerdy things they liked. And one time my brother asked him to hang out, and he was like, oh, I can't, my mom and dad grounded me at 40 something. I don't know, I'm just never gonna get over that. Anyway, I remember one time I was over at their house, and I remember his mom showed us in his room that he had a secret room in his room. And they're like, oh yeah, whenever like people finally come for Jehovah's Witnesses, we can hide in there. Jehovah's Witnesses like to fantasize, it feels like, about a time where they're going to be ostracized, because it kind of ties into Armageddon. They're like, oh, you're going to be ostracized, you're God's people, yada yada. And so she showed me this creepy room, and then she was like, oh, I should show you, we're going to call the guy Tim, by the way. She's like, let me show you some of Tim's artwork. And I was like, okay. And I got the worst like gut feeling from his room. I don't know, I just didn't like him. And she grabbed the sketchbook and she started like flipping through it. And I was like 14. He had drawn all these pictures of naked women, but like with really weird sexual things happening to them, like not good things. And she's like, oh, that's naughty. And she kept flipping through and there were more. And I was like super uncomfortable, trapped in a room with this woman. And then she was like, I don't know why he has these. And she like set it down. He was good at drawing, but I never told anyone about this. It freaked me out. I think I've told you since then, but yeah. This is, I don't know why I was gonna say funny story. It's not funny, actually. It's horrible. Yeah, the woman that he married, he ended up sexually abusing a bunch of the kids. So guess my feelings were pretty accurate on this guy. And
yep.
That is an unfortunate common theme with Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah, truly awful. I don't even think that he got in that much trouble. I think he went to jail for like a year or something. And I think she stayed with him. So that's fun. Awful. But I remember my parents had also gotten closer to this older couple in our Kingdom Hall. We're gonna call them Warren and Kelly. Warren, I remember he was like an old drill sergeant, and I'm pretty sure they were both from Germany, and his wife grew up in Nazi Germany as a Jehovah's Witness, and he was the same age, so it's very possible that he did not fight on the right side of the war. I'm just saying,
That's not good.
For him to marry her, because Jehovah's Witnesses were also sentenced to concentration camps and stuff, so I always had a bad feeling about him, and that kind of makes me wonder even more. I never really liked him. He was loud, he was very abrupt. He was an elder in the Kingdom Hall too, but my parents really liked him. Don't know what that says about them. Anyway, my dad would go fishing with Warren. They got like super, super close. And I remember my parents also got close to another couple. They were closer to my parents' age. They had moved to our congregation, and it was because they lived between two towns, and our congregation kind of, I guess, was more of an in-need congregation. And we're going to call them Stan and Sarah, and Stan was an elder. So they moved to our Kingdom Hall. They kind of got close to my parents, close in age. They didn't end up having kids, but my parents liked them. I really liked Sarah. I remember she was cool. I remember thinking she was really fun. They were the ones that helped us get into going to quick builds, and got us into the painting part, because Warren, for a living, painted houses and stuff, like indoor interior painting. So that was kind of his specialty. And of course they liked my dad going to quick builds because he was a carpenter. Like, he literally did it for a living, which my dad was usually the one that was used more for structural things. We were able to do the painting. They taught us how to. I enjoyed it. But yeah, I remember I got close to Sarah too, and I thought she was really cool. I remember, like, I wanted to be more like her. I liked that she was loud and that she wasn't afraid to be loud. Like, I just thought that was super cool. And it was very unique for my mom to get along so well with another woman. I remember that was a weird one. My mom was either jealous of other women or crappy to other women or just hated other women, which, of course, it turned to that at some point. We'll get to that more. But I remember things were kind of good. We were going to the quick builds. We had friends. I don't know. It was a semi-good time. Obviously, I still had my problems at home, and that was an issue. That didn't change or go away, but things were better around this time just because we were able to get out of the house more and it felt better. But anyway, I think I'm gonna leave this episode there. I'm sorry if it was all over the place. I am doing my best recounting these things. It's very blurry and fuzzy, and things kind of come to me more as I talk about it more and think about it more, but there are huge blanks or blank spots for certain things, and it's really confusing and really hard to navigate, and I might not get my timelines totally correct. It's all things that happen, but at different times, so we might jump back and forth a little bit during this time, but I'll make it as easy to digest and understand as possible. So, anyway, we're gonna leave this episode here. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you guys, what do they say on YouTube? Subscribe and like and comment.
Subscribe.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. You know, if you're someone that relates to this or had similar things, please feel free to share your experience in the comments. I understand what it's like, and I understand how important it is to share things that have happened to you. I hope that whoever's listening to this, I hope that you are taking care of yourself and being patient and kind to yourself. Life is hard, and it is all of our first times doing it. So just be kind to yourself. And I really appreciate anyone that listens. I hope that even if it's something you haven't gone through, maybe, it can help someone. But make sure you guys also, if you would like a palette cleanser after this, check out Japan's channel. He usually does gaming content, and although he is just here for moral support, it'd be great if you guys, like I said, wanted a palette cleanser. Go check out his channel. I obviously will leave his link down below. And we love Japan here. We stay in Japan. He's gotten me through a lot of this, and also been one of the main reasons why I'm able to talk about these things and have a podcast about it. So thank you. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. I don't know. Is that a thing to say when you're talking about depressing things? I'm not really sure.
Yeah,
I hope you enjoyed.
it works. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for supporting. And I will catch you guys hopefully next week. But if not, a future Sunday. Bye, friends.
Bye, guys.